What's up, guys? This is Franco Mobile Homes here, and today we are talking about the 9 steps of mobile home escrow process. So let's get right to it.
This is where we show you the ins and outs and everything there is to know about mobile homes. It is truly our mission to transform lives through mobile homes. So thanks for watching Franco Mobile Homes.
So what is an escrow? An escrow is basically the third party that allows everyone to be able to be on the same page before a transaction happens. If you can imagine, if you're selling a home and something doesn't go right on the other party's hand and you already given money to the seller, but you'll find out there's a lot of title issues to the home, how hard would it be to get that money back if they didn't want to give that money back? So the escrow is really there to kind of be that middleman, that judge, to make sure that both parties do everything that's needed on their side of the transaction to make sure all the check boxes are put in place correctly before transferring the title and before transferring the money. So escrow is there to check on the mobile home seller side that the seller is the actual owner of the home, that the title is paid off, that all taxes are previously paid, also making sure that the home is sellable and transferable. Now, on the buyer side of things, if it's a loan transaction, the buyer has to put their deposit, and then they'll have to put their total down payment, and they have to coordinate with the lender to make sure that the lender puts all the funds in and the money in, and the escrow can hold the lender's money so that when it closes, the seller would have all the funds. So these are all very heavy and dangerous things that you don't want to have any mistakes on. So that's why it's really worth it to have an escrow in your selling process. So let's get down to it. What are the 9 steps in an escrow? So number 1 is opening an escrow. Typically, an escrow company will have an escrow opening sheet. You fill out the seller's names, the seller's address, when they plan to close, anything else that's needed. And then on the buyer side, they want to know who the agents are. They want to know who the buyers are. They want to know if there's any commissions that are going to be paid out. They want to know what lenders they're going to be working with, and also when they plan on closing as well. So number 2 is they want to collect the buyer's earnest money deposit. So anytime there's a pending transaction made, usually the buyer will have to put an earnest money deposit, and that goes to escrow. That doesn't go to the seller, it goes to the escrow. So that way, if there's ever any conflict, the seller's not going to be like, I'm going to hold on to the money because you screwed me. We always have the escrow in place, so that way we can always get that money back if there's some drama that happens. Number 3 is we await the lender's appraisal. So when there's a loan in process, the buyer needs to get an appraisal done, and the escrow will help that communication with the bank and the escrow company and the buyers and make sure that that process is all done correctly. And lenders like to know that there's an escrow involved to make sure that everything's protected and smooth. Number 4 is they secure the financing. So buyers usually have to do a lot of validation during the pending process to make sure they are qualified. So they check their employment, they check their pay stubs, they check their bank accounts. All this stuff is needed before the bank will release the funds to escrow. So once they've done all the contingencies for the loan, then the bank will send the money to escrow and hold on to that money in escrow for the later close date. The 5th item is the park approval. When a buyer is pending for a mobile home in a mobile home park, there's the park application process. So the park also wants to know that the buyer coming in, when they buy that home, that they're going to qualify to be able to pay rent continuously for living there. So that's why they have this park approval as one of the contingencies for the sale. So maybe the person can buy the home cash, but then doesn't have a steady income to be able to afford that space rent. That can be a big problem. So the escrow is there to make sure that all parties are going to be happy, and they will need to collect that park approval as part of the process. Number 6 is the park lease. So after they get park approved, the buyer party and the park ownership or park management company will have to sign this lease. This lease is the agreement that the new buyer has coming into the park, that they understand the rules, they know when the late fees happen, they know what the pet rules are, and all of this communication is all done in this contract, which is the park lease. The escrow will need to see a copy of that. They will need to have this as proof before they will allow for this escrow to close and for this transaction to be completed. Number 7 is many times lenders will need insurances to be made before they'll allow a close as well. So escrow will also validate that the buyer or the lender has set up all their insurance before they'll allow the close to happen. Sometimes they'll allow you to close and have a good week or two after close to set up insurance. In many cases, they'll want it to be done before close of escrow. Number 8 is the title report. So on the seller side, we want to make sure that we have the correct title in hand. Escrow will do a title search and find out who's on title for the home. Are we actually working with the right family member of the owner of this home? Because sometimes that can be a mistake. It could show up as title under the parent's home and it was never processed down through the will. It's pretty often that there could be title issues. So that's why escrow will do this validation to make sure that the seller is also put up to the standard of being able to sell this home as well. And the last is number 9, which is the close of escrow. Once escrow has completely validated that everything is all in place, the seller is fully capable and ready to sell their home, and the buyer is fully capable, the money is in escrow, and they are park approved, they're loan approved, they have their insurances set up, they have their lease all set up on the buying side, and then the park will also validate that all of their items and needs are done as well. If they need a 2-month deposit, if they have rent that hasn't been paid for by the seller, they will want to validate that also. And once all the check boxes from all 3 parties are all met, then escrow will give the green light and allow for escrow to close and the transfer from the seller to the buyer swap. And that is a successful close of escrow. And because there's so many different parties involved and there's so much money involved, a lot of paperwork involved, it's so important to have a really good escrow company and a really good mobile home agent that can understand what these things are, because we don't want anything to be messed up. And that's why escrow is such an important factor, because during these pending transactions, you'll have drama come up. Hey, you promised this, you promised that. Issues will come up. And if there's not an escrow or a middleman in place, it can get really dramatic and a lot of lawsuits can happen. So it's very important you understand this escrow process. Every little step has more details to it. This is like a summary to that. So hope you enjoyed this recording, and we hope to make more stuff like this. So please subscribe to our stuff. Thanks. Take care.